it was kind of trademark, but it was vintage Boris Johnson, wasn't it? It was, as I thought it would be. He was talking about his greatest hits. It had some humour in there. It was tinged with sadness. And it was also very dignified, actually. A very dignified speech, I thought, in which he held his head high. He accepted that he didn't want to leave. And some of the things that, struck me, he said, of course, it was painful not to be able to see through the project. And as I said before, he rolled out the greatest hits. He said how proud he was to have got Brexit done. He said, and to give the country back the power to make its own laws. That's how he put it. He talked about levelling up. We must keep on levelling up, and we must fight for the freedom of Ukraine for as long as it takes. He then went on to say, of course, it is painful not to see the projects through that I wanted to. And then he said, in a characteristically humorous way, he said, but the herd has moved, and when the herd moves, it moves quickly. And then he said, no one is remotely indispensable. He'd said how much he wanted to stay on, and then he said that the Darwinian system, as he put it, will produce another leader who he said he would give as much support as he could. And then he touched upon his divisiveness, because he's batted it off all the time, but he said, I know that some of you, many of you, he said, will be relieved and some disappointed by my resignation. And he said he was so sad to be leaving the best job in the world, as he described it. And then he finished off by thanking the public for giving him, as he said, the immense privilege of being able to serve as the Prime Minister. He said being Prime Minister is an education in itself. And he said about the boundless British energy and enthusiasm that he had met around the country. And then he finally ended with, he is a journalist, he's a good writer, and he does good oratory. He said, it might feel dark now, but the future together is golden. And with that, the applause, there were no tears, massive applause. And he went back and he also thanked his wife, Carrie Johnson, who was watching on with their 9-month-old baby, Romney.
Yeah, it was, I thought, Beth. It was interesting talking beforehand about the emotion of other resignation statements we've seen. And in recent days, we've been told that Boris Johnson is in buoyant spirits. And there were no tears, obviously, from the Prime Minister. But I did get the sense we got a flicker of emotion from him, perhaps more than he usually shows, when he was talking about how sad he was to give up the best job in the world, as she was saying, talking quite frankly about the reason that he's continued to fight on so long, perhaps a little bit of an acknowledgement that he has been trying to hang on to the job until it just became impossible.
Yeah, and he talked about, he started off by thanking the British people for that huge mandate. He wanted it to be known that he was a winner once, and he won the biggest majority since Margaret Thatcher, and he wanted to remind everyone of that. And he explained that that was the reason that he clung on for so long, that he felt that he had been given a mandate by the people, and that mandate he felt stood. But he said, as he acknowledged, the herd moved against him, and once that happened, there really was nowhere else for him to go. But I didn't expect to see Boris Johnson shed a tear. The most emotion I've ever seen in Boris Johnson is him sometimes drops his head, but he wanted that to be a moment where he projected confidence and optimism. They are the tickets, if you like, that attracted the public to him in the first place. The can-do optimism, the Boris Johnson boosterism, as we used to call it. And really that speech, I think, had bucket loads of that in terms of the delivery. But also, look, it's hard to hear any Prime Minister talk about having to leave that job. It was hard to hear David Cameron do it, Theresa May, Boris Johnson, because, as he said, it's the best job in the world. I'm sad to leave it. I didn't want to go, but I had to leave. And that must be absolutely brutal.